What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. This week's episode is a doozy because I have a good friend, Rilynn, that sent in a photo of what he wanted painted on the show. And as you can see, we've got baby Yoda for you, buddy. So Rilynn, this show is dedicated to you. All right, here's the example of what we're going to be painting today. And you can see Rilynn sent that over to me. So I'm going to go ahead and get my paints ready. I've got plain blue and plain white acrylic paint, and I've got a pretty large brush. And the reason why we're going to use a large brush is because we are starting with the background. Starting with the background here, I'm going to take my large brush and just very gently go back and forth, side to side with some of this paint. I mixed the two together a little bit. So a little bit of blue into your white will create kind of a nice powdery light blue. And as you can see, I'm taking the paint and just kind of extending it out as far as I can go without putting any more on my brush. And of course, once I run out, I'm going to put some more on there and just go back and forth, side to side. I'm kind of going in a diagonal motion, as you can see, just so I can add a little bit of, just a little bit something different in the background sky here. Now, this is such a cool step because you get to practice with this paint. You get to get a good feel for how this acrylic paint really works. And there's all sorts of different kinds of acrylic paint, so you want to really test it. And a good way to test it is really just to put some on your brush and start with some background stuff. Try not to get too detailed or anything like that. You want to get a feel for how your paint works. And as you can see, I'm still going back and forth, side to side, sometimes diagonal, sometimes a little bit flatter, but I'm blending those paints. And as you can see, it creates a little bit of depth, and that sky is not entirely the same color. And that's what's exciting about it. Now what we're going to do here is grab more of a medium-sized brush, and you're going to put some plain white on there, and you're going to start blotting or dabbing your brush, and we're going to go ahead and make the effect of some clouds. Now the clouds, you can see I'm starting up on the top and working my way down just a little bit, taking that paint and extending it. And by doing the extending of that paint, it starts to fade away a little bit. But it gives the illusion of shadows and depth within that blotting or dabbing. And of course, once I run out, I put a little bit more plain white on my brush. And check that out. I'm also making the clouds not symmetrical. I'm not making them all the same. Remember, nature's not perfect, and again, we always use that to our advantage when we're doing landscapes because we can mess up, and it's okay as long as we overcome it with some technique. And you can see I'm going back a little bit and putting a little bit more highlights on some of the clouds once those have kind of dried off a little bit. It's so fantastic just to see how the paint really comes off your brush. You can see, check this out, look at that. Putting some more highlights on that cloud and it just brightens it up. Looks like there's some light source hitting it. Just a really pretty effect. And now you have depth. You have that bluish sky in the back, and you've got some pretty sweet clouds just coming right in front of that. So keep working on that, keep practicing, see what you got. Once you're done with your clouds, we're going to move on. We're going to put a little bit of blue into that light blue, making it just a little darker version of a powdery blue. And we're going to start making our mountains. So you can see we started with the sky in the back, clouds next, and we're going to start making some mountains right in front of those clouds. And you see a true amount of depth starting to happen on your painting. It's starting to come together. Now these mountains are completely different. Not two of them are alike. There's lots of texture starting to really come out of my brush. Again, I'm extending that paint as far as I can go without putting any more on my brush. And of course, when I run out, put some more on there. And as you can see, you can even add layers of mountains. You can do that by adding a little bit more blue into your brush, and that creates a new shade of blue. You can also add that shade of blue and break up some of the powdery light blue mountains that you have behind there, just to add some texture and some depth. Take your time on this step. It's a little bit more advanced. And then when you're done kind of making your mountains, you can flatten it out a little bit in front. You can see I'm just tapering those mountains a little bit in front and just making it look a little bit flatter. Again, this is more of your background stuff. It's designed to where you can mess up, you can make some mistakes, no big deal. All right, I'm now using a smaller size brush. Now this one is going to be used for a little bit more of a drawing technique. Now, if you want to find a brush that you feel comfortable making lines with, maybe a little bit finer touches, but what I'm doing now is I'm taking that smaller brush and texturizing some of the mountains with some darker blues. And what this does is just adds a fun little way, just making little details on your mountains. There you go. Now you can see just a really fun step, just lots of blues coming out. And it just changes everything. You can take a lot of time on this, you can take a little time on this. It's all good. Each painting is so different. And again, I'm just doing some basic background stuff. All right, now we're going to start changing a few things. We are needed to make some brown, so I've got some red acrylic paint, yellow acrylic paint, and black acrylic paint. What you're going to do is you're going to take maybe a medium-sized brush or a little palette knife, whatever you want, and you're going to take some red, dip it into some of your yellow, and mix it in, making orange. Red into yellow makes orange, but just a little bit of red. Then you're going to take a little bit of black and mix that right into your orange. That creates brown. All right, red into yellow creates your orange. Add a little bit of black, and that makes your brown. Now you can mix it up. You can kind of play around with your colors. As you can see, I'm just mixing away and just coming up with maybe a brown that I like. You can see I wiped off a little bit off my brush just to see how light it is. You add a little bit of white into it and it creates that light brown. So I'm going to take more of that light brown and just go back and forth, side to side, very quickly on the bottom half of this canvas. You can see I'm just adding that and it's texturizing it a little bit just because I'm doing that side to side technique. And just kind of finishing up a little bit of it. Now comes some interesting parts. You're going to take a brush that you feel comfortable drawing with, and you're going to put plain white acrylic paint right on top of that. Now what you're going to do is you're going to start shaping out your character. So in this case, of course, it's Baby Yoda, so we've got to break it down with shapes, and that's what I do is I just look at like maybe a photo or maybe a picture in your mind, and you just break it down with shapes. I'm just doing a quick, easy drawing of that, and I fill it in with plain white acrylic paint. Now once that acrylic paint is starting to dry, that's when we can start adding our different colors. can see I made a dark brown by just adding a little bit more black into that light brown. And I'm starting with my shadows first. It gives you a great step, a great feel for, you know, just messing around with it and just playing around with, you know, your shape still and just getting a good feel. Now, I've got it on like a twice the speed of what I did, just so you can see it happen a little bit more faster for you. But I start just breaking it down with some cool shapes, adding highlights and lowlights as I go along with it. You just add white if you want some highlights. You just add some white into your brown, and then you add black if you want some shadows in your brown. So you can see I'm just working on some of his clothing right here and just getting that going. It's kind of cool if you messed up on like maybe a mountain in the middle. You just put some acrylic paint right on top of that and it just took care of that mountain. Put Yoda in front of him. But again, this is twice the speed of what I normally do right here. I've got it like just amped up a little bit, but I really did work pretty quickly on this painting. I didn't take too much time. I wanted you to see that you can actually do something pretty quick and pretty awesome. Like you can really like change a canvas very quickly once you start learning these techniques. So I'm just visually just putting shadows and highlights all over the clothing here. And it's just fun. Now what I did was I stopped with the clothing and I made a mint green. You do that by taking some green on your brush and mixing it into some white. And that will make your light mint green. This is just a base layer, so it's not anything that we're going to keep. And then what I did was I added just a little bit of black. You can even add a little bit of brown if you want to, but a little bit of black though I did into the green, making a darker version. And this is where I have fun starting with the shadows. I start creating those shadows again, the darker points. And you can see I'm just very lightly with the brush, just breaking it down. There's no perfection to this. I didn't work on this for, days in, days out. In fact, it probably took me a half hour, I think, for the whole thing. And I'm just really, you can see, look at that, cool. Working on some more shadows with that little bit of darker green. Face is starting to come alive, the ears are coming out. This just takes practice. It just takes practice, that's all. And I'm doing the shadows on the obvious parts. Here comes above the eyes, the brow. And then there's also kind of some wrinkles up there too. Even though these little babies got baby wrinkles. And you can see I've got the eyes now starting to outline. Look at that. I know where the eyes are going to be, the ears are going to be, where the mouth's going to be. And you can see he's got his little fingers starting to come out as well. You want to paint those mint green as well. Alright, now I'm just working on some touch-up from that big brush. I took a small brush, just touched it up a little bit. And I really want to start working on a little bit more details. I'm adding a little bit darker version of green, so I added a little bit more black into my green, just a little bit. Not much is needed. And And now you can start to see it taking shape. The shadows are getting bolder. The lines are getting a little bit more obvious. And we're really starting to see the character come out. Because you got to make it look like something, right? As best you can. Here we go. Look at that. One step at a time. That's it. Take your time on it. You can see I'm not going crazy back and forth all fast like I was before. I'm taking a little bit more time, finding those areas that I really want to work on a little bit more and giving it a little bit more character. All right, so I'm still going. You can start to see him now coming out. Shadowing again. Working on those fine little touch-ups. Now, we just put some plain black on a small brush that we can draw with. And we're going to make these big eyes that he's got. And I'm using plain black. And just drew those in. And I'm going to color them in. Now you can really see where this is going, okay? I wanted to add that kind of in the middle so you can get a better feel. And sometimes you just need to add those bold moves all of a sudden so you can see your painting coming together a little bit better. Now I'm going to get a little bit more brave because I used that really dark black. And now I'm getting a little bit more brave and putting some really dark green tones in here. Added more black into my light green, and now I can start drawing a little bit with the finer, smaller brush. Remember, take your time with this. There we go, little touches here and there. Oh, look at this come together. Now we're going around his eye, kind of shaping it out a little bit better and adding a little bit more depth within that eye. What that does is it makes it pop out a little bit more. It looks a little bit more 3D, looks a little bit more realistic, not as flat. This is what happens when you start adding these little touches. And you can see the majority of our time is going to be doing the character. Again, all that background stuff was pretty quick. And as you can see, what I did is also add a little bit of dark areas in the land. You can see in that kind of brownish dirt. I added a little bit more of that in there as well, just to give it some depth and some character. All right. And just, again, going back and forth all around with all of your details. Add some of those shadows in your hands as well. And you can go every which way on this painting. You can see, like, I kind of go up and down all around and just kind of go with the flow of how I feel and what I want to work on. You'll start getting your flow too. Now you can see I added a big time shadow on that cheek. And you'll see artists really add a lot of detail, a lot of fine tuning to this. Again, we're doing this pretty quickly. And we're still going. added a little bit of white on my brush just to add some highlights now. And this is fun. You can kind of go back and forth between lowlights and highlights and just have some fun with your Yoda. There's some highlights there, some more. What that does is adds more depth as well. This is kind of a fun part right here too. You can see I'm adding more detail on this eye. I added a little bit of light gray on my brush to add some little bit of highlights into the plain black eye. And then I took a big chunk of white on my brush and just dabbed or blotted some white right on top of that. And that adds that cool feel, like there's a little bit more of a shine or a gloss on those eyes. Just working on some little details, touching up. And you can see we're getting pretty close to being done with working on this guy. Some more details, little details. Eventually you got to make a decision of when you want to be done with it. You can see I'm adding some more shadows just to add more depth into the clothing. I've got a little bit more brave since I added that black in those eyes, and so it's not as pastel-y. Add a little bit more darker shadows and contrast. It's kind of fun. Look at that. That is so cool. Just adding those dark contrast little features here and there. It just makes it look a little bit more 3D. And there you go. So happy I could do this painting. Appreciate you sending me out that awesome photo, Rilynn. That was a good picture you drew. Keep up the good work, buddy. Again, just going back, adding some more details. Little things here or there make the big difference in your paintings. So as you can see, we did a few cool steps here very quickly, and it was okay. I wanted to show you that it was okay to make mistakes. If you're making some portraits, you don't have to be perfection. You don't have to make it so detailed, but you can too. You can also go back. If you're a perfectionist, you can really kind of do fine-tune lines, all sorts of different things. This was just a real fun show for me. Rilynn, I hope you enjoyed it, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.